Welcome back to the channel, everyone, and welcome to the first video of my PSA submission series. This is the first out of, I hope, many. I've got a couple of people that are submitting cards along with myself, so we're going to be taking a deep dive into some of the cards that they've submitted to us today. Now, if you would be interested in submitting your own PSA cards with me and the other guys that we're going to be looking at their cards, you can contact me on Twitter. Unfortunately, at the moment, it is just UK only, but with that kind of service comes the assessment video like you're watching today. That'll be your own video, my notes for that, and pre-grades as well that will be sent privately. So today's video is from PSA. Thank you for submitting cards with me, mate. I'm glad we can finally work something out and get some stuff sent off to PSA. It's very, very exciting. So everyone who's watching this video, head over to Twitter at ThePokEATTIC. Go check him out. Or you can check out Attic Breaks, I think it is. I'll add his taglines on the edit as well. On TikTok. So he does box breaks over there. He's cracked some awesome cards, some great sets recently. He's been very successful on there, streaming out live content. I'd like to wish him the best continuing forward with that. And hopefully there's a future partnership for grading cards from his breaks in the works at the moment. We need to just work something out. So if you buy any cards that Attic breaks, we might have a look at sending off cards through my service as well, and we'll do that all through his TikTok shop. So that's very exciting, but very early doors yet. So Attic has 19 cards to submit this time around. And without further ado, I suppose we should just take a look at what we've got today, guys. Very, very exciting. A real range, and obviously we're starting off classic PSA. I'm going to pop these to the side and we'll pull them one by one. So we're starting off with a Topps TV series card. I don't really know much about these cards really. I know that I opened them when I was younger. I think they're quite niche. I've never actually seen one in person graded before. But I suppose the things that we're looking for really here, very similar to sports cards, because unlike traditional Pokemon cards, there are sharp edges rather than rounded. So we're looking for sharp corners, which again, similar to sports when you're grading sports. I've got no idea how they grade the centering on these cards, because they really have anything to go by. I'm not really sure. The only thing that I could spot on this card is there are some issues down in these bottom corners here. A little bit of whitening. I don't know if you can see just there, down on the bottom left and bottom right. So might mark it down. Not really sure where that falls on the scale, but yeah, cool card nonetheless. So next up, we have a Rayquaza C, which I believe this stands for Champion or Cynthia. But yeah, this is by an artist called Kawaii, which is a great artist, one of my favourite in the TCG. Love to see that Cosmo Holofall as well. Actually the same artist that's done the recent Lugia alternate art that's coming in the upcoming Silver Tempest set. Very excited to see that. There is also a level X equivalent of this card as well, so there is another card that goes in this set, and that is also got Cynthia featuring on the front. This has got good centering. It looks pretty good. So I can start to provide some expertise on some of these, because we're back into the traditional realm outside of Topps. So yeah, it's got good centering. It does have the first edition logo down here. And one of the things I will say about Japanese cards, especially from the kind of Diamond and Pearl era, maybe even from the Nintendo era as well, is that first edition doesn't always mean rarer in Japanese. Some of the first edition prints actually ran longer than the unlimited prints, just due to decreased demand. So check out the pop reports whenever you look at sending off these cards. It's important to know that some of the unlimited cards are actually rarer than the first edition. The back looks great too. The surface is looking good. There's no kind of scratches on the back. One thing that I did do with this card is I did clean like a small kind of like white particle or piece of food or something off the back. It's no criticism to Attic at all. One thing I would say though, guys, is obviously when you're packaging up these cards, for anyone's doing this for your own submissions or whatever, always use fresh sleeves. Always make sure you've got fresh semi-rigids. Don't reuse stuff that's been put into the mail, because the last thing you want is something getting into the sleeve, just like that little tiny particle. It was almost like a grain of sand or a very small, like fine grain of sugar or salt. If that does happen, when obviously it goes into the submission, you've got cards stacked on top of each other. If you have a big stack of cards and they start pressing, you can actually leave indents on the back of the cards, when those cards are compacted together. So that will automatically start downshifting those grades, especially if it leaves multiple indents. So just be careful of that. But otherwise, Ray's looking great, Attic. Yeah, confident on this one. Looks like a lovely card. Next up is a beautiful Primal Kyogre Ex from the Ancient Origins XY era set, one of my favourite eras in the TCG. So the front centering is a little bit off. It's right to left. It's a little bit thicker on this right hand side. The texturing is also offset, so that's another way you can check the centering on these cards, or sometimes there is a little bit of kind of, so it's really hard to explain. Maybe if I'm trying to, by the way, when I receive these cards, I try to remove them from the sleeves as little as I can, quickly to check surfacing and things like that, and then it goes straight back in. But if I can cast the guy, you guys can see that there's some texturing here. Best way to check on these cards is either the smaller energies here or the bigger one up here where the HP is. Hopefully the camera can capture this. But if you can see there, you see the center of the kind of centrics. There's lots of circles that they do around the energies. It's a little bit off to the right, which normally means that indenting is done separate to the printing, which normally shows you that the centering is a little bit off. Obviously, PSA has the kind of 60-40 split bound, so you're usually a little bit protected from that. But yeah, not too sure on this one. If I'm being totally honest, I'll always provide my honest opinions on these kind of pre-grade assessments. On the back, there is a kind of small whitening issue on the top right. I believe I have on my notes. There's a tiny little nick just on that top edge there, if you can see that. And then there was also some scuffs and light scratching on the top left on the back as well. I won't take the card out. You'll have to take my word for it, Attic. But some surface stuff going on there, and there was a minor edge bump as well on the back side. I think on the bottom edge of the card, if I can try and catch it. I can't right in the sleeve, but it was almost as like it's been impacted by something. So yeah, that will probably knock this card down reasonably significantly along with the centering. So that's definitely something to think about, Attic. Obviously, I'll leave the choice up to you. Next up, we have Ultra Necrosma, which I believe is from Dragon Majesty, secret rare. Very nice gold card. So we're into a different era of the TCG now. We're into Sun and Moon. These tag teams or these borders usually mean that they're notorious for bad centering, but they're easy to spot because of kind of like the piping, I call it the piping, that runs around the edge of the card. So yeah, it's very, very easy to spot when you have like right to left or left to right. So this does look like it does have right to left, generally because the piping splits the border of the card, so it's easier to spot. So it does look a little bit right to left. The texturing, the texturing looks great. Normally there's like indents and stuff that you want to look out for on these cards. Looks really good. The back centering looks great actually. It looks reasonable. It's definitely within the 60-40 bound, so nothing really to worry about there. I didn't spot any whitening on this one. And there are some minor, there were actually some minor surface scuffs and tiny, really tiny indents on this one. So again, surface stuff. I mean, PSA, right? That they should be looking for this stuff, but very minor. I've had cards submitted myself that get away with that kind of stuff. Nothing too visible to the naked eye. We're talking, extreme light. I've got my lights sat to the left and right here that light my recording setup. I normally crank those up and like reflect the light off, so I can see all those and get a blue light out as well. But yeah, some minor stuff. Again, totally up to you, Tom. You'll have your pre-grades come to you. You can make that decision for yourself. Next up, we have a Hidden Fates. God, beautiful stuff. Hidden Fates is such a great set. This is the Umbreon GX. Has solid centering, maybe a little thin on the bottom and left side. You can see that probably where you, if we kind of flip this over, so left and bottom is a little bit thinner than the right side and top side. Well, actually the other way around, sorry, because we've just flipped it over, sorry. So the left and top side a little bit thicker. So that's normally a good way of checking out. But front and back centering doesn't always line up with cards, which is weird. I don't know why that is. Something to do with the printing. I've never had insight into that, so I don't really know. Yeah, I suppose other things things to look out for are the reprint indents. So when Hidden Fates was reprinted, there was a common issue where there was like these kind of almost like just dotted indents on the cards. I can't see that on this one, so that's a nice little plus. But if you do have Hidden Fates cards and you are looking to grade, that's something definitely to look out for. But the surface on this card looks beautiful front and back. It's just a stunning card. I love this card format. Onto another Hidden Fates card, but a promo. We're revisiting Rayquaza again. So yeah, this came in a premium collection box, a beautiful box actually. I think there was like more than one box you could get this from. One with a figurine, one with a Jumbo GX card, Jumbo promo card. But this one, I'll be honest, top heavy on the centering. one way that I normally use to look at this is obviously, I mean, you can see it has the piping, obviously, that the other cards do. The other thing to look at, I don't know why I find it easier, but I just look at these 45-degree angles on the corners. There's also a really good indicator of being able to spot, you know, rotation shift as well. Like, check the gaps between this kind of spiked corner and these corners down here. You can definitely see that it's top heavy. There is no whitening visible on this card, so that's a nice checkbox. Looks pretty good. And there is some minor surface scratching on the back side. That is super common with these boxes, that the promos that are placed into boxes, mainly just due to when people remove them or how they're packaged. I mean, Pokemon's been notorious for putting in box promos in just terrible states and then coming out, you know, looking awful. So in the grand scheme of things, this one's survived the box trauma pretty well, but there are some kind of lasting effects all the way that the person has stored this. So yeah, either it was you, Attic, or somebody else, but there is some minor surface stuff on the back. But again, might not get picked up on. Still pretty strong. But yeah, that top heavy centering might just be outside of the bounds. Not too sure. Next up, we have a Blastoise and Piplup Alternator from Cosmic Eclipse. A beautiful set, great set. This is a tiny bit top heavy on the centering, not like the Ray last card, where it's a lot more heavier. This looks well within the bounds, looks good. One thing I will say, Tiff, with the yellow tag teams is for the centering, it's pretty clear that when it's really off, because the top left corner has this kind of like light shadow effect that runs around the frame of the card. You can see that just there. You see how it's like slightly lighter yellow on the corner, and the bottom right corner has a slightly darker yellow that runs around on the border. So normally, if the card is super off with centering, if the piping doesn't do the work and doesn't show you that it's off center, normally you can tell by there being like a large amount of that light yellow or dark yellow in the bottom corners. But yeah, looks pretty good. There's no whitening on the edges of the card, but there is a white speck on this card. Now, I don't know if I can get it up on camera. I will try and pull it out. Let me see if I can. I need to just lean forward and spot it, and then right just above the M on the Pokemon, just here, and that isn't in the sleeve. I have pulled it out to check it out, so there is a little tiny white mark on that. They might pick up on that. So yeah, that is something to consider. Probably considered same severity as a whitening on a corner. It is a reasonable white dot. It is a printing error more than likely, but something that could mark the card down. But still, stunning artwork, beautiful card. So yeah, great example there, Tom. Next up, we've got a big hitter. We're still in Cosmic Eclipse, and we have Rosa here. So one of the full art trainers, the first one that we've seen of this submission. I think it's the only full art trainer that we have in this submission. It's definitely within the bounds of centering. It's a big price if this pulls the 10. I know in Japanese this is a huge card, just because it's just peak waifu, isn't it? Like 100%. This card looks clean as can be. It's looking good. The centering looks solid. It's strong all round. I'm confident of this having a chance at the 10, and that would be a really nice hit for you, Attic. So good luck with that one. I would definitely suggest sending this one off. Next up is, we return back to Blastoise and Piplup, but in this case it's a rainbow rare, so not the alternate art. It is the rainbow rare. Centering looks perfect on the front. Yeah, again, returning back to the piping and those colours that we looked at in the top left and bottom right, looks great to me. And back centering looks great. There's no whitening, nothing. Surface looks great on this. This is one of the strongest cards in the submission. It looks really good. I'm just hoping I might clean out some of this semi-rigid, or might give you a fresh one just to make sure that we don't get any damage in transit here. But super strong card, definitely worth sending off. I'd be very confident that this would get the 10. If it doesn't, I'm really sorry for misleading you, but it looks great. Next up, we've got some Sword and Shield promos. Not Sword and Shield, sorry. Well, they came out during the Sword and Shield era, delayed very long after their Japanese counterpart that was released in Tag All-Stars or Tag All-Stars GX. But these came in the tag team promo boxes released during the Sword and Shield era, but they are actually Sun and Moon promos. So first up is the Reshazard. These, again, they're box promos. They're going to be tough to grade. I know it for a fact. You'll see a Japanese version of this card pop up later in another video as part of my submission. But the English print just doesn't quite have the quality. It has poor front right to left centering, I think, on the front. It's fair to say. Again, accentuated by look how much dark dark yellow we have in this bottom right hand corner, and we don't see any light yellow on that left border along that top side. And then we could just tell by the piping that this is much thicker down on this left hand side here. So yeah, I think auto 9 just based on that alone. And it does also have a whitening issue on that top left hand corner. I know it's difficult to spot sometimes because of the dust particles and stuff that are on these semi-rigids. Trying to, like, my surface is not dusty at all, it's just these things are just absolute dust magnets, so you can just see on that top left corner. So I'd be very confident that this would just be straight into the 9 category. So yeah, couple of things on that just kind of, unfortunately, just straight from the print, put it down a peg from, you know, it just isn't going to get a 10. So yeah. Next up is going to be a Pika ROM, similar promo to the one we saw last. This has decent centering, actually, looks pretty good. The only thing I'd say about this is it has really interesting corner cuts. So they're just not very rounded. There's some very squared off corners. There is a little bit of whitening on this top left-hand corner as well that I've got on my notes. But I suppose when I'm talking about the cut, if you just compare that top left corner, look how like rounded it is. Very standard for a Pokemon card. The rest of these are a little bit squared off, like they've just been like snipped by a machine, not very well. I don't know whether that affects the overall grade. I don't know whether PSA look into that too much. It's something that they definitely look into for sports cards. They might knock it down. But yeah, we've got that whitening, good centering, corner cuts might knock this down into the 9 category. But what a card this is. I love the texturing that runs behind these, and Pikachu looks like such a boss in this. Wicked card. Thanks for popping these 2 promos into the submission, Tom. It's been awesome to see them in person in English, because I've only seen them in Japanese so far. So yeah, looking good. But yeah, could be a 9 due to that whitening on corners, but it's got every chance at a 10. You never know. Next up, we have a Pikachu Sword and Shield 20 promo, Black Star promo. Everyone should know what this card is. There's a crazy rush on this. It's an extremely common promo. It took a stupid, silly jump in price. The box that it came in was very easily accessible for a very long time, and then there was just this crazy mad rush, maybe Twice Bait Jake video or something like that kind of came out. It came with an awesome figure though in the promotional box. Really liked that. But let's talk about the card. So in terms of what's we're looking at straight away, one of the things I always do is it looks top heavy, right? So that top edge is a lot heavier it's a lot thicker than the bottom edge. Normally one thing to look at with the promos is the copyright. If it sits in the center, normally means that bottom edge is going to be a little bit thinner than we kind of expect. The copyright should sit just above center. Is normally I've found what works well with the kind of like, as a good gauge on centering. But you can see that this card is top heavy on the centering. So yeah. What else do we have down? Well, I have nothing else. It just says otherwise it's pretty clean. I couldn't spot anything else really with this card. Surface looked great. No noticeable whitening. Corners look real good. So yeah, it's just whether the centering's within bounds and whether you can get away with it that's going to pull the 10 or not. When it comes to cards like this, check the pop reports, see whether it's worth it. If it does get that 9, is it worth the grading charge, the shipping charge, all that stuff. But this could be borderline, but that top edge is pretty thick. So leave that one with you, Attic. Next up, we have a beautiful series of cards. I have not seen these in person either yet. I could not get my hands on the promo boxes. Can't see why that would have been. They were scalped extremely heavily, but beautiful artworks, man. And like these in Japanese are stunning. In English they're absolutely beautiful. This is the first time I've seen them. So first up we have the Flareon. So one thing I'll say straight away is that we do have some whitening just up in this top left-hand corner. Let me see if you see that just on that left, just up here, just to the right of the silver part of the V. This is quite common with regular V cards in Sword and Shield, or mainly just where they print this kind of reflective, like glossy black print for the V cards. Even on the regular Vs, you see a lot of common whitening. I think it's just the way that they're printed. It picks it up super easily. So that's definitely one thing to look at on your alternate arts, because obviously all of them have that kind of V glossy black printing on them. What else do we have? I suppose it's got good centering, so that looks pretty good. The other thing that we do have is that there is some two corners with whitening on the backside. So top right and bottom left both have issues that I can see automatically on my OBS feed right there. So top right and top left. So there is some whitening there and some whitening on the front. So again, normally PSA let 1, maybe 2 slip. But it just depends on whether they pick up on that one at the front and whether they just leave it down to a cutting error. I'm not too sure, but a stunning card, beautiful perspective on this one. I love this promo, a beautiful, beautiful card in this submission. Obviously, following the V is going to be the V-Max. So these don't have that V, and in the top left with the glossy black print. So the V-Maxes tend to be a little bit stronger in terms of those front whitening. So I would be surprised if these are stronger candidates for 9s and 10s just generally throughout the Sword and Shield era. However, with this card, the centering is easily within bounds. The card looks great on the front. It's just the back that's the problem. There's 3 dots of whitening, top left, top right, and bottom left, bottom right, maybe. I have 3 corners down, but we can see at least 2 here. I can't. I'm trying not to like lean over and just completely block this camera view. But yeah, there are some whitening issues there. They may slip through. Could get through on the 10, but a beautiful example and a stunning promo from a great artist. Okacheke is just a great style, just very unique. You can check it, you can recognize it straight away. Beautiful promo, but yeah, just have a think about those whitening on those corners, guys. So continuing the Eeveelutions, we have probably my favorite single card out of all of the Eeveelution alts. I think this one, just the colors, everything, the perspective, just beautiful. Reminds me of the kind of swirling nature of the Mew and Mewtwo GX tag team, that kind of golden circle or whatever they call it in art. I can't remember what it's called, the golden ratio, something like that. But yeah, another poor victim to the black V whitening just on that top left corner up here. You can see some pretty bad whitening actually on that one, on that left hand side. And there is also 3 corners with whitening as well on the back side as well. So another one where if the front slips through, you might get away with it. But yes, I'd say probably a 9 candidate, because nothing else is wrong with the card at all. Centering looks good, surfaces are all good. It's just those whitening issues. Again, box promos, what can you do? They're tough to grade, really tough. Following the V is going to be the V-Max. Obviously now, there is whitening on the top right and top left of this card. The right side also has some whitening, so just here above like the P, you can just you can see that perfectly on the camera. Just there are some more whitening. So the boxes are just brutal on these promos. The pop report suggests that they're tough to grade. For most of them, there's almost twice the number of 9s than there are 10s. So if you do manage to pull the 10 on any of these promos, that's a really solid submission. These cards are just so good though. Just in terms of the number of Pokemon and checkboxes that they tick, because of a lot of them have multiple Pokemon, and this being one of them, still could be strong with a 9. They were difficult to get hold of. We'd never really know how many of these boxes are out there, so even at a 9 could still be worth it. That's down to the submitter though to check the price, but this definitely has those 3 whitening issues that are on the back. PSA normally pick up on those a lot easier than the front side stuff, so yeah, something to think about there. So onto the last kind of pairing in these promos. So we're onto the Jolteon now. I love this card. It's so cool. Really cool. There's very small whitening on the corners on the back side of this card, like extremely small, like much smaller than the others. The front side looks great on this one. I don't see any of that kind of whitening on the black glossy print. So definitely a lot stronger than the others on this one. It's got great centering as well, so it's just a case of those 2 tiny marks. Like, will they grade that all the way down and push that down to a 9? I don't know. This is definitely borderline, a super strong candidate compared to some of the other Vs the other 2 Vs that we saw that we've seen in this submission. So yeah, looks good and beautiful card. And last but not least, probably my favourite out of the lot, the Jolteon duo of the V-Max as a pair. I think they're definitely the strongest out of the lot. This is the last promo from the Eeveelutions. This is I think that the top right back side does have some whitening just up on that top corner that you can see. Otherwise, it's looking clean and looking really strong. So they're lenient with the 10s in terms of, like I said, how many whitening marks they let in. It's just that one that I can see. So I could see them passing this and this hitting the 10. Just a beautiful card. What a hit that would be if you could get the 10 on that. But yeah, looks strong otherwise. Just that one on that top right hand corner. Otherwise looking great. Centering, surface, everything else looking really strong. And last but not least of this 19 card submission, it's another Eeveelution alt, but it's not a promo. It's actually from Evolving Skies. This is a Glacion V-Max, solid all round, great centering, surface and corners on this. Shows you what a difference it makes pulling something like this out of a pack when it's printed right. You know, they're not always clear in the printing factory. Some of the sets that come straight out of booster packs are terrible. This is looking great from the Evolving Skies set. Looking beautiful, and again another card with multiple Pokemon in the front. We've got an Eevee, we've got what else we've got a Feebas here, we've got Pikachu, Pancham, Marill, Azumarill. There might be some others in the back that I might be missing, but we've got some Dynamax dens popping off in the back as well. Just a great theme, really strong. I think this is one of the cards that's going to be a fan favorite, just probably because of the Pikachu feature in the front. But yeah, very strong. Would be surprised if this one didn't get the 10. Looking really nice and a great way to finish off the submission video. So that's it for the 19 cards that PokeAttic has submitted for PSA grading. Just to have a quick scan over here. If anyone else is interested in submitting cards over to PSA with me, please reach out to me on Twitter or Instagram via DM. I'll be happy to provide you with details. Remember, it is just UK only at the moment. If you do submit with me, you will get this whole kind of pre-grading assessment video. It's early doors now, so I haven't quite figured out the whole deal with, you know, deposits and things like that with me doing assessments, because obviously this takes a reasonable amount of time. I hope you enjoyed looking through this. I hope, you know, some of the details and things that we've looked at and some of the tips that I've provided, you know, you guys find useful for your own submissions. But again, you know, included with the service of you send this card to me, I'll be able to provide this so you don't have to do the hard work. Just drop me any questions. Anyone else, you can also ask me questions down in the comments below. Remember to like the video, subscribe, and keep an eye out for the rest of the PSA submissions. There's 2 more videos coming for this sub, and if anyone else can squeeze in time to go in with the rest of this sub, we'll see those videos very soon. Thank you for checking out this video. It's great to be back, and yeah, we'll catch you guys in the next one. Thanks.